Hello and welcome to day 5 of the Write It series for Black History Month. This is Erica from blacksandperiodfilms.com. Today is February the 5th, 2017, and on March the 5th, 1770, Crispus Attucks became the first person killed in the Boston Massacre and is now widely considered to be the first American casualty in the American Revolutionary War. Not much is known about him because he was a slave, and of course, records of slaves were not documented thoroughly. There are no records of his life after he escaped his master until his death in 1770. Doing the research for this video, I learned a lot about him, and so I would highly suggest that you visit Crispus Attucks Museum.org because that's where I got all of this information from. I'll be sure to credit the site down below. It's believed that Attucks was born a slave in Farmington, Massachusetts in 1723. Both his parents were slaves owned by Colonel Buckminster from Farmington. Documents describe Crispus as a man of mixed parentage. His father, Prince, was an African slave, and his mother, Nancy, was a Wampanoag or Natick Indian forced into slavery. He was 27 when he escaped seeking freedom, and using the name Michael Johnson as an alias, he found work on a whaling ship. Being a whaler was a physically demanding and dangerous job. It's believed that he left his whaling job sometime during the French Indian War between 1754 and 1760 to become a merchant seaman. He never raised suspicion as a runaway slave because a lot of the people saw him and considered him to be Indian. Between his sailings, he would work as a rope master in Boston Harbor. He had capabilities as a leader because on March 5th, 1770, he led a group of sailors. Now it's argued whether they were just trying to cause trouble or whether they truly believed in the rebellion cause. But he ended up dying, being the first to die in the event known as the Boston Massacre. His life would make a wonderful movie because it's so rich of details. Even though we don't know much about him, what we do know is very entertaining. Now, this was interesting because there's at Crispus Attucks Museum.org, they have right here, as you can see, a description of him from a runaway slave advertisement. And he's described as being a mulatto fellow, about 27 years of age, named Crispus. Now, you'll see his name spelled various ways when you research him. They didn't really spell names in one way during this time. He's 6 feet 2 inches high, short curl hairs, short curls hair, his knees nearer together than common. He wore a light colored bearskin coat, plain brown coat jacket, or brown or wool one, new buckskin breeches, blue yarn stockings, and a check woolen shirt. And whoever got him was going to be given 10 pounds for returning him. So because we have this description, um, we know that he was a very statuesque guy. He had curly hair. He walked a certain way because it says his knees were nearer together than common. So when I was fan casting him, the first person that came to mind was Common. I feel like they have similar noses, chins, eyes, and probably were of similar skin colors. Another person that came to mind because it said he was 27 years old was this actor Brandon Bell. He's not been on a lot, but I think he also looks similar to Crispus Attucks. But then I realized that Crispus Attucks was mixed race, that he was Black and Native American. And so I felt that maybe casting these two actors would be erasing his identity. And I think it would be during this time we could get an actor that was Black and Native to play him. So I have a question mark because I don't really know any Black and Native actors. If you know any, suggest some down below. So because of his running away from slavery, we have a lot to work with in his story beyond just slavery. We could cover his life as a runaway slave. We could cover him working at the Boston Harbor in between his whaling trips, and we could cover him working as a whaler. I haven't seen any movies to cover that with a Black or a Native person. And I think this would be even more interesting because of the extra layer of him being mixed race, but not white and black, being black and native. How did that affect how people reacted to him? Um, we also could cover his parents' relationship. How was it for a Wampanoag woman and an African man to get together? They both were on the plantation. What did other people think of it? What did the master feel about that? How did they come to be a couple? And how was it growing up as little baby Crispus? Um, the website that I got all this information from did say that he had a brother and a sister, but they both died in childhood. So, how did that affect him? We know that Native and Black American relationships were common throughout American history, and I haven't really seen any movies cover that besides two movies, which we have the relationship of Josiah and Toby in the 1997 miniseries True Women, and we have the relationship that was the main relationship in this film Unbowed, and it was from 1999. So there aren't many films that I know of that cover Black and Native relationships in a historical context or a contemporary context for that matter. So I think a film that covered that would be interesting, and we could do that by showing how Crispus' parents got together on this plantation. So I think his life has a lot that we could see in a film or a miniseries or historical novel because we don't know much about his life. So all of it, if you were to write a novel about his life or a character that were derived from him, you'd have a lot to work with. You could cover his life as a slave or as a runaway slave. You could cover his life when he worked on the Boston Harbor. You could cover his life while he was a whaler on a whaling ship, and you could cover the life of his parents and how they got together on the plantation. I don't think I've seen any slave quote unquote movies that showed Native Americans that were enslaved and the relationships between black people and the native people that were enslaved. So I think that would be really interesting. However you go about covering the story of Crispus Attucks, I know it will be interesting. So if you have any suggestions, leave them down below and make sure you go out and write it.